My brother proposed to his girlfriend at my wedding, only for her to expose his affair and walk out. Now my family blames me because I support her? Hi, guys. So owing to some circumstances, I recently told my brother's girlfriend that she was doing the right thing by leaving him, and well, my family is all up in arms about it. All of this started because on the day of my wedding, my insufferable brother decided to propose to his girlfriend and karma took care of him. My brother, Nick, 26 male, has been dating Riley, 28 female, for a couple of years. She and I went to college together and have been really good friends since then, so that's how she met Nick. He was the one who reached out to her and struck up a conversation with her on social media after having seen her in a couple of my photos, and she decided to go out with him. As far as I remember, they have been together for almost 5 years now. Meanwhile, my wife, 28 female, and I, 28 male, are high school sweethearts, and last week, we got married. But of course, Nick could not stand the fact that one entire day was going to be totally about me and my wife, so he decided to make my wedding all about himself as well. He did so proposing to Riley in front of all our guests at the reception, and of course he hadn't discussed it with me or my wife, so it came as a total surprise to all of us. Everybody knows that it's quite unethical and weird to propose at somebody else's wedding without even getting their consent, but I knew that he was doing this on purpose to get a rise out of me. He is a huge attention seeker and is always competing with me for some reason, so this was not surprising, and I decided to keep quiet. Because I did not want to ruin the wedding by reacting immediately and making a scene. My wife also chose to do the same, and we waited for Riley to respond instead. And karma hit back instantly because, after a few really intense minutes of silence, Riley turned away from him and started walking up to the stage so she could get the mic. Everyone was really confused, especially Nick, and I had no idea what was about to happen. But then Riley started speaking, and before anything else, she looked at me and my wife and told us that she was genuinely sorry for doing this at our wedding. She had intended on waiting until after we were married because she really didn't want to create any drama, but since my brother had put her in such a tough position, she was going to have to come out and tell everyone the truth. And then, after apologizing to us, she dropped a bombshell, saying that she knew that this was all for show because Nick had actually been cheating on her for the past couple of months, and she had found out about it just the week before our wedding. I'm not even kidding. There was absolute silence after that because nobody knew how to react, including me and my wife. It was an absolute scandal, and it got worse when Riley went on speaking and told us that she had found a bunch of messages on his phone that he had been exchanging with one of his coworkers, and she knew that they had been hooking up for quite a few months. When she found out, she wanted to confront him about it immediately, but then, she thought about me and refrained from doing anything that would cause drama because she knew that Nick was the biggest attention seeker on the planet and would be willing to go to any lengths to make sure that he was in the spotlight, even on the day of my wedding, because he was constantly competing with me. One of the biggest reasons that she did not confront him about the cheating in the week before the wedding was because she was aware of the fact that he would love nothing more than the opportunity to make everything all about himself in the week leading up to the day of the wedding. She did not want to give him that satisfaction, which is why she had stayed quiet. Riley announced how she had always known that Nick hated me, and now, she had finally figured out why. She said that it was mostly out of insecurity and jealousy because he was just inherently a loser, and revealed that even when they were spending time together, he would often talk crap about me to her, and it was exhausting to have to deal with somebody like that since it felt like he hated me but was still weirdly obsessed with me. In spite of all of that, she had spent the last 5 years of her life with him, completely loyal and dedicated to him. And, none of that had meant anything to him, which is why he had cheated. She announced that she had planned on breaking up with him, completely disappearing from his life without a word in a couple of days after the wedding, but he had decided to spring this proposal on her. And now, she had no other option but to tell everybody the truth because she was not going to say yes to him after everything that she had found out. Besides, she didn't think that it even mattered if she said yes to him or not because she was pretty sure that he was only proposing to her because he wanted to make this wedding about himself. He didn't actually love her or anything, and she was sure that she didn't love him anymore either. She then called him the biggest loser she has had the misfortune of meeting in her life, and after she was done with her speech, she turned to me and my wife and walked over to us so she could hug us and congratulate us before dramatically walking out of the wedding. I have to admit, it was pretty cool, and she had her mic drop moment, and after she walked out, people completely lost their minds. Nick obviously left and chased after her once he had recovered from the shock of what had just happened, because I'm sure it has to be pretty embarrassing for him to be exposed like that. And my parents went after him because, well, he's their darling golden child, so why not? The rest of the guests were pretty confused, and everyone immediately started talking about what had just happened, so the bridesmaids and groomsmen got things under control and we started serving lunch and stuff immediately, so that we could get the entire event over with as quickly as possible because it had pretty much turned into a soap opera at that point. On one hand, My wife and I were kind of disappointed that our wedding hadn't exactly gone according to plan, but on the other hand, we were also laughing about it because this would definitely be a wedding to remember for everyone else. Either way, it didn't even occur to me that my parents would try to involve me in this because I really had nothing to do with any of this. The only way I could possibly be involved was because it was my wedding that this happened at, which is a pretty stupid reason or drag me into this mess, but they decided to use that against me, along with the fact that Riley and I are good friends. And we really are good friends. She also gets along really well with my wife and we have stayed in touch since the wedding fiasco, but I don't see how it's fair to ask me to try and get me to speak to her so she'll give Nick another chance. If I'm being honest, I don't even think that Nick deserves another chance because he had been cheating on her and that's pretty much unforgivable. On top of that, he had also decided to propose to her, and that must have been really insulting because he wasn't proposing to her because he actually loved her, he was just doing it for attention. Whatever he had done, it was going really low, and in spite of that, my parents expected me to speak to Riley and get her to at least talk to Nick, if not forgive him. They started pestering me, literally the day after the wedding, not even giving me a chance to enjoy my life as a newlywed. Even after I told him that I wouldn't be doing anything of the sort, they started arguing with me, saying that since this had happened at my wedding, it was my responsibility as the host to fix it, which didn't even make any sense. I even blocked them so they wouldn't be able to contact me, but they started using burner phones and fake accounts on social media to keep trying to get to me. After a while, it started getting on my nerves and I couldn't ignore it anymore. So last evening, I decided to reach out to Riley and send her a message, saying that I was really proud of her for the stand that she had taken, even though it had caused quite a lot of drama at my wedding. I told her that she had done the right thing by dumping my brother because he doesn't deserve to be with her and she needs somebody way better than him in her life. It wasn't like I was just saying for the sake of it, just to get on the nerves of my family, I really meant it too. We had already been in touch ever since the wedding, since she had reached out to apologize to me after the fiasco, and I wanted to make sure that she was doing right because it couldn't have been emotionally easy for her to lay all out in the open after being with my brother for so many years. Anyway, I took a screenshot of the message that I had sent her and then, I unblocked my parents and sent them that screenshot. I also told him that I had made my feelings on this matter perfectly clear to everyone, and I was not going to get involved after this. So if they were actually hoping for me to take a stand for my brother, they could stop right now. Nick had always been a huge pain for me and he had never been nice to me, even though I had always tried to build a good relationship between us. That had never worked, and now, I knew that he was never going to be a good person, so I wanted nothing to do with him, and I was genuinely really happy that Riley had left him. Once I sent that message, I blocked them again after saying that if they tried to contact me again, I would report them because I was really sick of them trying to blame me and get me involved in something that I had no part in. This morning, it was not my parents that I received a message from, but Nick. He had sent me a really long email saying that from our childhood, he had always treated me as competition because even though our parents treated him like the golden child, everyone knew that I was better than him in every aspect whatsoever, and that always made him insecure and jealous of me. And I didn't make it better by trying to be his friend either because it just irritated him. Which is why he had always tried to outdo me in everything, and maybe he had lost sight of what was important while trying to compete with me. But having said that, he also said that if I was not willing to help him out, there was no need for me to reach out to Riley and send that message to her to turn her against him even more. That was excessive. He didn't apologize for anything, he just told me that he had an explanation for how he had behaved so far, but the least I could have done for him was at least stay out of it. Even if my parents kept annoying me, I could have just ignored them instead of going out of my way to text Riley and tell her that she had done the right thing and stuff because this was between the two of them, and I didn't need to interfere. He also said that the only reason my parents had always treated him better than me was because they were aware of the fact that he was a bit insecure and jealous, and everyone could see it except for me. I never realized how literally everybody else in the family constantly raised me right in front of him and never had a nice thing to say about him, which made him feel like I was always overshadowing him. That might have been true, but I think a better way to deal with that would have been to try and be better in the things that he was competing with me instead of meaninglessly trying to seek attention by showing off his achievements and rubbing it in my face. Anyway, all that was in the past, and in spite of that, he told me that he still hadn't been able to move on from any of it because it had really affected him. The email was basically just full of him, trying to explain himself, but not once apologizing. However, I still felt bad for him because I can't imagine what it must have felt like to have an older brother who was a bit of an overachiever and had to live up to that standard. But the problem was that even while people were praising me, they were never putting him down. It was he who perceived that as an insult, even though it was never meant to be one. Regardless of what had happened in our childhood, it didn't explain why he had carried that into his adult life as well, because I think he should have grown up a little bit. Especially given the whole situation with Riley, I don't know how to feel about it anymore because after reading that email, I feel kind of bad. It might be irrational and stuff, but that's how I feel, and I really need to know if I did the right thing by reaching out to her and telling her that she did the right thing by dumping my brother. Because I know it has really hurt a lot of people's feelings, so I'm feeling kind of iffy about it. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's ex-girlfriend that she did the right thing by dumping him? Update 1. Hi. So a few days back, my brother reached out to me with that email, and I have been thinking about whether I had done the right thing by telling Riley that it was a good thing that she had dumped Nick or not, and you know what? I did the right thing. I'm not gonna worry about it anymore because that email means this to me, if I'm being honest. It made me feel bad for a couple of days, but then I spoke to my wife, spoke to a couple of my friends, and even read the comments here, and I realized that the fact that he hadn't apologized to me shows a lot about how he actually feels. He was just upset that I had reached out to Riley, and that's the only reason he had given me such a detailed explanation of how he had felt when he was a kid. Well, it doesn't matter because a lot of us have childhood trauma, but that's not an excuse for doing whatever you want as an adult and getting away with it. He thought that he could just try to guilt trip me, try to make me feel bad about his sob story from his childhood, and in a way, he was right because I did feel bad for him, but not bad enough to take back what I had said. In fact, even if I do take back what I said, it's not gonna change the facts. Riley did actually do the right thing by dumping him at the wedding, so publicly. Since he was actually cheating on her, he had no business proposing to her just for attention. It was disgusting and really low. On top of that, we all knew that he was only doing it on the day of my wedding because he couldn't stand me, and yet, he expects me to feel bad for him? Yeah, fat chance. I just blocked that email address because I don't want it to be able to reach out to me anymore with any of his bullcrap excuses. I had also been speaking to Riley and I told her everything, and she told me that I don't need to feel bad for him either. Apparently, he has been trying to get in touch with her, but she hasn't responded, and she even got a couple of her friends to bring back all her stuff from his apartment so she wouldn't have to interact with him directly. She has been deleting and ignoring all of his messages without even reading them since he has been messaging her from various accounts and numbers because his own has been blocked. She told me that he can keep trying, but he doesn't care, and I think that's the only way to deal with Nick at this point. I'm doing the same thing too, and thankfully, after I sent that screenshot of my message to Riley to my parents, they haven't bothered to contact me either. I don't know how long it's gonna take for them to get over this, but I just hope that they do and stop bothering me. Update 2. Hey, so it's been 6 days since I've blocked Nick, and so far, he hasn't done anything to get in touch with me yet. But yesterday, my parents showed up at my house and started demanding to let them in so they could speak to me. Of course, I told them that I didn't want to speak to them at all because I knew what they were going to talk about. However, they did not leave and kept insisting that I had to open up the door to let them in so they could discuss what was going on in the family, because no matter what I wanted to say to Riley, I was still going to be a part of the family and I couldn't just ignore the situation at hand. Apparently, the reason that they were here was because whatever had happened at my wedding had put the reputation of our family at stake, and so, they needed to speak to me so we could all do some damage control, and they were here to brainstorm ideas. I found the whole thing a bit ridiculous because it's not like our family is extremely popular and well known. We're not celebrities. I don't even know what reputation they were talking about, because I'm sure that people will gossip for a couple of days and then forget about this scandal. Yeah, folks might revisit it as a funny incident from time to time, since it was quite hilarious to watch Nick be completely humiliated like that, but he brought that onto himself. But apart from that, I don't understand why they were trying to take it so seriously, and I told them that I was not going to brainstorm any sort of ideas with them because putting out a statement or whatever was only going to attract more attention to this, so if they really wanted to be done with all of this drama and protect the reputation, they had better not address it at all and just let it go. Also, I didn't want to end up looking like a fool by acting so self-important, and I suggested the same thing to them as well because it would be quite embarrassing to be related to these kinds of people. It was already quite embarrassing, I didn't want to make it worse. Plus, I was not going to put out any statement in defense of Nick because I don't want to be defending him, since what he did with Riley and me was very wrong and he deserves every bit of the ridicule that he's receiving right now. Anyway, I didn't even open the door to my parents, and when they refused to go away, insisting that we needed to talk, I told them that either they go away or I called the cops, and that's when they finally left. But even before leaving, my dad cursed me out, and I could hear my mother crying. But I knew that it was just theatrics so I would feel bad for them, and it was exactly the strategy that Nick had been using. So I just ignored it, and then eventually, they left me alone. Update 3. Hi, guys. So 4 days ago, my parents visited me at my place, and I had refused to let them in. It was very clear that I wanted nothing to do with them anymore, so I had no contact with my family. Yesterday, my wife and I left for our honeymoon, but as soon as we landed, Our phone was flooded with messages from our relatives and stuff because apparently, my parents had taken it upon themselves to put out a statement on behalf of the family, and they had even added my name at the very end, for some reason. In the post that they had made, my parents had said that they were very upset and embarrassed by the incident that had taken place at my wedding, and they wanted to apologize to all the guests for whatever they had to witness because it was supposed to be a personal thing, but Riley had chosen to air dirty linen in public for no reason other than to humiliate and embarrass Nick. They also claimed that apparently, Riley was the attention seeker in this situation and not their son, which is why she had chosen to expose Nick and his affair at my wedding instead of just dealing with the situation privately, because she wanted to publicly shame not just the man she had been with for the past 5 years, but also our family, which was her whole agenda, and if there was anybody to blame for the situation, it would be her. So basically, in the statement that they had put out, they completely refused to take any accountability and acted as if Nick was completely innocent in this whole situation, even though it was he who had cheated and then chosen to propose at my wedding without even consulting with me first. I'm not gonna lie, this is not something that's unexpected from my parents, but what really angered me was the fact that they had chosen to sign my name in the end as well and ended the post with the line, from my parents' names, Nick and my name. They knew very well that I did not agree with any of the things that they were saying, so I knew that they were doing this to jeopardize my friendship with Riley. It was absolutely unacceptable, and now everybody was questioning me, so I decided to call them up to get them to take that post down or at least remove my name, but to character, they did not answer any of my phone calls or messages, and I'm still waiting. At least I have spoken to Riley about the post and told her that I had nothing to do with it, which she understands, and she told me that she didn't even think that I had anything to do with it either. I just wanted to rant about it for a bit, which is why I posted this update. But I'll let you know what happens once I speak to them, which seems unlikely because they're all sly cowards. Update 4. So, the update you guys were waiting for is family here. My parents finally reached back out to me. I had unblocked them to let them know that they had to take my name out of the post or remove it altogether because I had already told him that I did not want to be associated with any of this, and yet, they had taken the liberty to add my name to the post without my consent. I didn't know yet if I could sue them or not, but it didn't matter. I still threatened them with a lawsuit when they called me back. I was on my honeymoon and I was already pretty annoyed that they were still not letting me have a good time after my wedding and had constantly kept up a stream of nonsensical behavior just to get on my nerves. So as soon as they called me back, I started yelling at them, and when I stopped, that's when my parents told me that they heard me, loud and clear, and they were going to take my name out of the post. But it also meant that I was ending my association with my family, and since I couldn't be bothered to even stand with them in such tough times, I didn't need to be considered a part of the family anymore, and I really didn't have a problem with it, so I didn't know why they were acting like it was a huge deal. Then, they told me that if they removed my name from the post, it would mean that they would remove my name from their will, and I could stop hoping for any sort of inheritance from them. I was shocked, not because they were trying to threaten me, but because they actually thought that it was going to work. I couldn't believe that they thought that my integrity could be brought out with their inheritance, and more than anything else, I couldn't believe that they were stupid enough to try this because it wasn't even as though they were extremely rich. My parents are middle management at best, so I really don't know what sort of inheritance they were talking about, and so I told them that I was completely fine with this arrangement. As long as they removed my name from the post, I didn't care what they did afterward. They could stop calling me their son, for all that I cared, because I had had enough of these people. All my life, I had had to put up with their stupidity, but I was not going to tolerate this anymore. I was done, and they told me that they were going to cut me off forever. I told them that I was more than okay with it, and then I hung up. After I checked with my relatives and made sure that they had removed my name from the post, I finally blocked them again, and now, I'm going to focus on just enjoying my honeymoon with my wife because I have no intention of letting them ruin this. Even if they do something after this, I'm just gonna deal with it after I get back home and have a social media detox. I really think that it's much needed for me right now. Update 5. Hi, so my wife and I just returned from our honeymoon. It's been a little over 2 weeks since we last posted, and I feel really relaxed and rejuvenated. The social media detox really did me a lot of good. Anyway, now that I'm back, I think it's time for another update, so here it goes. After my parents removed my name from that post, they cut all ties with me. And I was quite happy about it. I honestly didn't care because so far, the only reason I had maintained a relationship with them was purely out of obligation. And I guess the fact that I didn't even seem to care about it was what made them even more mad, so they started trying to badmouth me to our relatives, but they were not having any of it. So long story short, nobody's speaking to my family anymore, and on top of that, they even had to take the post down because Riley threatened to sue them as well. I say good for her, because what Nick did to her was not right. So they really had no right to try and defend his actions and try to make her look like the bad guy. She and I are still in touch, and like classic Nick, He's playing the victim again because from what I hear, he's been telling everybody that the reason it didn't work out with Riley was because it was just not meant to be. Apparently, he thinks that she had always taken my side over and so, it was just not meant to be. He has been trying to make it sound like her friendship with me was more important to her than their relationship, which was not the case at all, because even Riley had told me that whenever he would start talking about me, she would always only try to divert the topic, but never tried to take my side or whatever like he was saying. Anyway, I don't think it matters because the people that he has been saying it to, they're mutual friends, most of them are on Riley's side and have been trying to get him to apologize, but whatever, it doesn't even matter if he apologizes or not because I don't think anybody cares about his apology anymore. Even Riley is moving on to better things, she's moving away soon and I'm really happy for her, the past doesn't really matter anymore. What really matters is that my wife and I are doing well after the honeymoon and we are content at the moment.